All right. I think we're good. Yeah. Thanks everyone for stopping by and welcome to today's webinar, Building Your Social Media Empire with MAPS coach Dina Watson. I'll make this short and sweet. Please note this meeting is being recorded. I will share the link in the chat momentarily to the MAPS YouTube channel where the recording will be available within 24 hours. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, we do value group participation. So we ask if you have any questions for Dina, please type them, or myself as well. Please type them into the chat box. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or any other coaching programs, please feel free to email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK @kw.com. That's all for me. Dina, take it away.
Cool. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Prime Day. I didn't know that that was a thing, but maybe I'll go buy something this afternoon. I want to hit on something that Graham kind of mentioned that I don't honestly think I knew until I became a coach at MAPS. Fast Track is the group coaching side of MAPS Coaching, which MAPS Coaching is the coaching company at Keller Williams. And I didn't know for years that actually we had a YouTube channel full of really amazing content just like this, where a lot of us as coaches do free webinars on things. There are dozens, if not hundreds, probably of videos on that YouTube channel that are all really quick and dirty, 30 minutes or less mostly. Easy to take away. Every time we do one of these, our goal is to give you guys at least one or two things to put into your business from the free call. So I would imagine that if you have any need in your business right now, go to YouTube and type in Fast Track, TRACK, MAPS, and it will pop right up. And there's just hours and hours and hours of other content on different topics on there that you guys could utilize in your business. So just to give you another free resource. As he said, my name is Dina Watson. If you hear Diana Watson, Deanna Watson, Dinah Watson, some variation of that, they're probably talking about me if they're talking about Keller Williams. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an intro to who I am and why I'm here doing this class with you. First and foremost, I'm just like you. I'm still in production myself. I still run a sales team. So I'm not someone who's sitting up here telling you what to do and not doing it myself. Anytime I take a class, I think that that's important for me to know that whoever's teaching it is still doing it, because especially with social media, things change every 5 minutes. And so taking a class from someone who tells you what they used to do doesn't really work that way anymore. So just so you guys know, I'm still in the trenches doing this with you guys. I'm also a MAPS coach, coach mastery level and breakthrough, and also part of KW Military. So one of the founding task force members of KW Military. As you heard, we just moved. My husband is active duty, and so in the Army, and we just PCS'd. I moved here about 2 days ago. So I was joking with Graham before we got on here that I have more boxes in my house full of stuff. I don't know where things are. I luckily know where my laptop is, so I can still teach you guys. But I am teaching this class because I have used social media to be able to still maintain a business despite moving every 3 years. We moved where we just came from 3 years ago. 3 years before that, we were somewhere else. And so every 3 years, I pick up and we move somewhere and start over. And as a real estate agent, that is probably, if you allow it to be, one of the scariest things you can possibly imagine doing, starting your business, your database, and all of that over again. And because of social media, Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully soon TikTok, I'm not having to do that. And I want to teach you guys some of the tactics to be able to do the same, whether you're starting in a new market or whether you're looking to add this as the leg of your lead generation. It really doesn't matter. It's all kind of the same thing. The most important thing to know about me, there's two more things. I have a really cute 5-year-old son who's redheaded in every single bit of it. And I like dogs, not really a cat person. Apparently all my neighbors are, because there are cats roaming around my front yard and I don't know where they belong, but they have tags that say I am not lost. So apparently they belong to someone. We're going to get into this real quick, but before that, if you want to connect with me, the best place to do it is on social media. And this is what it would look like if you looked for me today. All of the ways that you can find me are right there. And if you have any questions after this, please let me know. The last thing I tell everyone is if you want to get inspiration for content and you want to rip off and duplicate anything I post, you are more than welcome to. Make it your own. Obviously, you're not a military spouse probably, so I wouldn't put that on your post. But you can take inspiration from anything that we do. I also have a Facebook page for my real estate team. We are the Signature Group, and our colors are teal and yellow. And just like the logo you see on the koozies behind my picture, you're welcome to rip off and duplicate that as well. If you guys want any inspiration for content on social, please take it from me. I would love to see you do it. All right, so I'm going to start with a thought-provoking question, and I want you guys to actually pop it in the chat box and write it down. The first question is, when you think about building what you would consider a massive business from social media, like let's imagine that all other sources of your business just disappeared. Your Sphere was gone, your leads on Zillow were gone, your wherever else you pay for things, your referrals were all gone, and you were only looking at social media as a way to build a massive business. What number of sales comes to mind for you when you think of building what you would consider a massive social media sales business? How many transactions a year would that be? Pop it in the chat box. 50, 100, 40, 90, 75, a lot of 50s, somewhere between 50 and 100. And just so you know, some of you are messaging me privately and the group is not seeing your stuff. Gotta love Zoom. All right, so it seems to be somewhere from 20 to 50, but more average, what you guys would consider as massive is 50 to 100. And I think that's interesting because the first time I taught a version of this class was about 4 years ago. And then it was 20s, 10s, 30s. The scale of what people now know is possible on social has grown, which I think is cool. Second question I want you guys to put in the chat box before we get started. What's the largest number of sales you've ever done from social in a 12-month period, where it's not someone that's in your sphere, you truly never knew them until you met them on social media? 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 5. So we've got 5 is the highest. 5. All right, we got 30. Going once, going twice. I feel like this is an auction and you guys are bidding. This is cool. All right, thank you guys for typing that in there. That's super cool. The highest we have is 30 and the lowest we have is 0. So somewhere between 0 and 30 is the largest number of sales that this group has ever done in a 12-month period. Now, before we move on, I want you to spend another minute or so thinking about, you guys came here for a reason. When you saw this in your inbox, you signed up for a reason. And I want you to write down what your intentions are for the next 30 minutes that we have in this class as it pertains to how to drive business from social media. I want you to write down 1 or 2 things. You don't have to post this in the chat box if you don't want to, but I'm asking you to do this because at the end of this 30 minutes, if you did not get your answer, I'm encouraging you to email it to me, so that I can help you get that question answered. And at the end of this, I will put my email in the chat box and you can send me an email. 1 or 2 things, what are your intentions for this 30 minutes? Something you wanna learn that will help you drive business to yourself on social media. Now, I'm not gonna go through these 4 questions with you and have you answer them. I am gonna read them out loud. And as I'm reading, I want you to think about the one that sticks out to you the most, and I want you to write it down and answer it later. Pro tip, I read fast. You might want to screenshot this. So I don't want you to lose the questions. If you want to answer them later, write them down or take a screenshot would be the easiest thing because I'm not going to sit on this for long. But I want you to think of these 4 questions. Number 1, what do you think is possible for you on social media? Notice I didn't say what do you think is possible. What do you think is possible for you personally on social media? Number 2, what skills or knowledge is missing for you personally for you to be able to accomplish what is possible in number 1? Number 3, what are your limiting beliefs around your ability to reach that potential? Number 4, what assumptions do you make about people who spend a lot of time on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok as real estate professionals? Now, as you answer these questions, remember, number 4, if you have an assumption about people who spend a lot of time, you've started a belief system that may prevent you from getting to your possibility. Because think about it, if you said, people who spend a lot of time on social media as real estate agents are wasting their time, do you think you would ever time block a few hours a week to spend or waste time on social media? Probably not. So just make sure that when you're answering these questions for yourself, that your assumptions in number 4 don't get in the way of what's possible for you in number 1. All right, so this is actually one of 2 parts of a free webinar series that I do. And so today we're going to start with the foundational pieces. We're going to be doing the next one of these in about a week, and it will be different. So when you see it come across your email, if you want to register for that, it is a different portion of a class. But today we're going to talk about the foundational piece, which is building your actual brand. And I want to talk about why it's essential to build your brand in order for you to have a social media empire, if you will. The most important thing, and I'm going to go over the components in a minute, but the most important thing for you to understand is that if you do not have a brand, you are truly competing with all 2.1 or however many today there are million real estate agents in this country. There's nothing that makes you different. Now, I know I just made some of you mad. I also know that there are probably a lot of things that make you different. And yet what I want you to understand is in a world in which people are judging your abilities based on your professionalism, what you put out there, the content you produce, how well you speak and articulate things. If you're not doing that and you're not creating a brand to stand behind, you look the same as the other 2.1 million people. And if everyone looks the same, that means no one is essentially different to the public. Okay. It'd be like going and closing your eyes in a shoe store and then telling you to feel all the shoes. You can't see which one's Nike. You can't see which one's Brooks. You can't see which ones are any of the other options that you guys choose. You're just feeling around. You don't know. You're in the dark. You're blind. It's the same thing here. Second reason that I want you to think about as we go into the components of a great brand is if you are branded, most people have an easier time remembering something they saw visually. Meaning your name is likely not going to be as recognizable to someone as your logo, as your color scheme. All of those things are important so that you can stick out. Long and short of this, guys, is that if you have a brand and you have a strong brand with all 5 of these components, you will stick out amongst the 2.1 million people in this country and the however many hundreds or thousands are in your local board. I know where I live, there are 2,550 agents. And I will tell you, to get in the top 100, you only have to sell 1 a month. However, if I don't do a good job of telling that story, I look the same as the other 2,450 people, and so do you. The consumer does not know any different, right? So we're going to start breaking this down, and we're going to talk about the 5 components of every great brand. Think Apple, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, whatever. They all have all 5 of these. And I want you to think about which ones you have, which ones you've got nailed down, and which ones you need to work on. Number 2 is brand identity, and we're going to go into what these mean here in a minute. But essentially, it's probably what you think. It's the logo, it's who you are, it's the color scheme, it's the fonts, it's all of that. Number 2 is brand purpose, and I find that a lot of agents get stuck here, and they actually don't go any farther. Brand purpose is your why. What are you doing here? And all of those. We're going to go into the details in a second. Number 3 is the messaging. How are you crafting the right message for you to be able to capture the audience that you have, that you want? Number 4, brand differentiation. Say that 5 times fast. It's what it sounds like. How are you different than any of the other real estate agents that are in your community? And if you have a team, how is your team different than any other option that another agent could join? I know there are multiple teams in every marketplace now. How are you guys different? Number 5, what is your brand experience? So experience, what do people experience when they have a conversation with you? How fast do you return messages to them whenever they message your brand online? How do they feel when they leave your content, whether you're writing a blog or a YouTube channel or whatever else? And we'll go into some of those details in a second. So I want you to think about where to start. We'll circle back to the brand stuff here in a minute, because I think a lot of people get stuck thinking about that. And I want you to continue on in your process here. We'll go back and cover that here at the end. So I want you to think about where to start. Number 1, the first thing you have to do, and I hate when people tell me I have to do something because I don't like to be challenged. So I'm like, I don't have to do anything. The first thing that you have to do if you want to build a big business on social media or in any social platform, online platform, is to define your target audience. I hate to tell all of you this, you are not the solution for every consumer. Hopefully somebody else has told you that before me today, so it doesn't sting as bad. First time I heard that, I was like, well, I can be, and that's not the point. You are not the best option for everyone, and yet you are the best option for someone. The key here is deciding who you want to be the best option for. Every single one of these people is going to have a different set of pain points, which we'll go into in a minute. And if you're not the unique solution for their pain points, you're not the best option for them. And if you're not the best option for them, it's going to show, regardless of how well you try to mask it. I think the easier time, we will all have an easier time getting our content consumed by people if our content feels like it was made for them. So thinking about who you want to be the solution for is you defining your target audience. And it's one of the most important places you can start, Because when you start marketing your purpose and your message and your brand and all the things, the people who you are made to serve will rise up and have a conversation with you. The people who you don't want to have a conversation with will recognize that and leave you alone. And that's the best part, in my opinion. Number two, once you figure out who your target audience is, you have to determine their pain points. Each audience is going to innately have various different, what we call pain points, which are things they struggle with, things they're looking for, things that rub the wrong way in real estate or in investing or rental or whatever. And once you know what pain points they deal with, you can know how to serve them. And I'll give you an example. Our target audience a long time ago, if we're thinking about when we first started our team, we said our target's the military. Okay, cool. So we started producing all this content. No one was consuming it at all. It was flopping. And I'm like, okay, why is no one consuming this? We were thinking that our target market was the military service member. It wasn't. It was the military spouse, which majority, and if you are a military spouse or a veteran, please just don't blow up the chat box. I'm giving you a generalization right now. Majority of military spouses who are in home buying age in general, overwhelming majority of them are 19 to 28 years old. They are the first time they've ever been away from home, most likely. They don't have any friends or any support group where they're going, right? They need a tribe and a community and all these things. And if we were trying to serve the pain point of the service member, we would be completely ignoring and disregarding the pain points that she had or he had. Most often the ones that we deal with are younger women, okay? So when we thought about it, it was our target's the military, but that wasn't true. Our target then became the military spouse. And we can throw events to help them meet each other. We can throw packing parties. We can have wine and paints where we can get people together. We can produce content to show them where to go in the community when they get there. We can talk about the coolest places to take your kids. We can talk about all those things. But if we didn't know that we didn't niche down and we were talking to the military service member, our content would have a completely different connotation and we would not appeal to any of them. So think about it from that perspective. And I want you to write down, if you can, I'm going to give you 20 seconds or so. Who do you want to be the solution for? And you're not allowed to write down the word everyone. Be as specific as you possibly can. Who do you want to be the unique solution for? Whose problems do you want to solve? The problems of a military spouse are different than the problems of an empty nester. The problems of an empty nester are different than the problems of an investor. You guys get my point. Write down at least one or two things. And this does not, so for those of you who are control freaks like me, this does not mean you can't work with everyone else. It just means that you're going to target a particular subset of people so that you're working with people that you like solving those problems. Carlos, high-end Hispanics. I love that. Carlos, I would love to know. I'm a detail kind of person, so I have questions, Carlos. Veterans, Michael, perfect. High school seniors before they screw up their credit. Okay. Are they of home buying age? I don't know. It's pretty cool. Foreign national investors. That's cool. All right. You guys have some cool people. All right. So we're going to move on from that, but I do encourage you guys to continue writing if you haven't answered your own question. Take a screenshot of this if you need to. And as always, this will be recorded and on the YouTube channel if you want to rewatch it. So the next thing that the journey that I went on understanding was that a lot of us as real estate agents communicate in the features. First time home buyer, right? Like we're looking at just listed on a cul-de-sac, no backyard neighbors. Those are features. Okay. 3-bed, 2-bath on a cul-de-sac, great investment opportunity. Every single one of those things are features of that property. But in order to build a very large business on social media, you have to learn how to communicate not only the features, which are the headlines, but the benefits. Why does living on a cul-de-sac benefit anyone? Why does that matter? And when you can articulate that in your social media posts, you engage more people. Now, in the full course that I teach, which we'll talk about if you guys care to go on to that or not at the end, but in the full course that I teach, I talk about how there's a ranking system. And you can Google this. If you don't want to go into the course, it's fine. You can Google it and figure some of it out yourself. But there's a whole ranking system that social media has in terms of who they show your content to, right? And one of the most important pieces of that ranking system is who engages with it. So if you're communicating just the features and people are like, oh, cool, it's on a cul-de-sac. Instead of communicating what the benefit of living on a cul-de-sac is, you're probably, if you're just communicating features, not going to get anybody. And if you own a team, I want you to think about this as well. Why does having coaching on a team benefit the agent? If you own a market center, why is your market center not just the feature? What's the benefit of it? What's the benefit of having leads provided to you? What's the benefit of it being just listed? What's the benefit of it being a great investment property? When you guys can communicate the benefits and not just the features, the power of that post skyrockets, because people understand. Here's the thing. I've also been told this. Every human being is tuned into one radio station, and it's what's in it for me. Every single human being on this planet, when you are speaking, is asking what's in this conversation for me. Communicating the benefits and not just the features answers that question. Why does it matter that this home is on a cul-de-sac? Why does it matter that this home is whatever the feature is that you're posting? So we've gotten through 3, and I want to go a little deeper with the target audience thing, and I want to give you guys some space to actually write this down. So think back to a few minutes ago when we were talking about who do you want to be the unique problem solver for, whose problems do you enjoy solving, who do you want to be the answer to, right? And I'm going to give you about 30 to 60 seconds to actually write that down, not in the chat box, but by yourself. And if you said investors, I want you to go deeper. If you said first-time home buyers, I want you to go deeper. There's always a second and a third level. The farther down the niche or niche rabbit hole you can go, the bigger impact you will have with that group of people. So I'm going to give you about 30 quiet seconds to write some of that down, maybe 60 if I feel like y'all are still going. Who do you want to be the unique solution for? Some of you aren't writing. No, I'm just kidding. You're not hurting my feelings. It's your class, not mine. All right. If you haven't finished, I'll give you another probably 15, 20 seconds to wrap it up. And then when we get done here, you can go into finishing it. All right, so we're going to go into the rest of the target audience conversation. So targeting a specific audience of people or a specific market of people does not mean that you're only working with them, right? I said that a minute ago. You're welcome to work with whomever you wish, right? Yet, if you are targeting a particular person with a particular type of problem or a subset or group of people who you feel like you're the unique solution to, it's going to allow you to fine tune your marketing. And think about this, not just in sales, but if you're building a team or if you have a market center or if you own another business, the more effectively you can communicate why you're the answer to that person, the more likely they are to connect and buy with you. That's all this is. If I take all of the sexiness away from it, it's how effective is your communication with a group of people to explain to them that you're the solution. That's all this is. Right? Aside from that, it actually is going to allow you to identify a particular set of problems that these people are dealing with that gives you the basis for your content. If you're working with people who are downsizing or right sizing, as an agent on my team calls it, out of their kids have graduated high school, right? And they're moving into a lesser size home. Maybe they're relocating out of state to go to their forever dream place. They have a different set of problems than someone buying their first property. So here's the thing. Let's say that that was your target. Start creating content about the answers to all those questions that they would ask. You are going to become known for something. You're going to become known as the person that when someone says, you know, I think we're going to move to Florida. We just want to sell this house, get out of here. Our kids are out of school. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, you have to call, fill in your name. Or on the flip side, investors, you know, it's the same thing, you guys. I'm not going to make it complicated. But if you're struggling with creating your target audience because it seems so official, I just want you to think about what types of issues do you enjoy dealing with? We all have to solve certain problems in this business. Unfortunately, real estate is riddled with them. And yet I'm sure if you've been here for more than one sale, you know what problems you like dealing with and which ones you don't. That could be your target audience. So to build your target audience, you're going to need to answer 4 questions: the who, the what, the why, and the where. And if you want to take a screenshot of this, it might be easier for later. But first you have to answer who, which we've talked about a little bit. Who do you desire to work with the most? Who do you relate to the most and you think you can understand them? Then you're going to talk about what. You're trying to identify what the issues are that you're solving. We talked about that a minute ago. It would help you to write them down. If you sat and said, let's say you sat down with a piece of paper every first Monday of every month and you said, what issues are my audience members dealing with? And you just brain dumped all of that stuff. That's your video content for the month. Once you know who you're wanting to work with, you have to know what issues they're dealing with so you can help them. And if that doesn't work, just ask. Hey, if you bought a home or downsized in the last 2 years, can I talk to you? I have a few questions. Not wanting to sell you anything. Back in the day, they did what's called focus groups. You can still do a focus group where you say, I did one the other day. Hey, I want to talk to military spouse real estate agents. I have a few questions. If you could help me, I'm looking to talk to 50 people. I had probably 200 people message me on Facebook and say they'd love to help me. So if you have that, put it out there and you can find out what their problems actually are. Now, third, you're looking to understand, why is this the group of people that you're targeting? What's in it for you? Now, for me, it's an intrinsic thing. My husband and I own a few $1 million in real estate, and he still has almost half of his career left. And 99.99% of the US military is living paycheck to paycheck, you guys. I don't know if y'all know that. Newsflash, no one here is rich. And yet through real estate, I've been able to, and he has been able to, we have been able to amass a large net worth that we would not have had if real estate wasn't around, right? So one of the reasons why that audience is important to me is because I've seen what it's done to change my life. And I want to help other people do that too. Why are you the person to solve the problem? That's another why question that you should ask. Now, last, we're talking about where. Where is this community located? Now, for me, the military is an easy one to figure that out because they're located at every US military installation. For you, if you have a goal of working with empty nesters, people whose kids have moved out of the house or whose family members have moved out and they're downsizing or right-sizing, where do they hang out? Where do they work? The most important question you probably can ask your own self is, who do I know that knows everyone else? My brother is that person. If I ever needed something, I could go to my brother and say, hey, who do you know that does this? And he would probably rattle off 5 to 10 people. He's very well connected. So the reason I'm asking this is because if you, like, let's say that you want to work with empty nesters and you call someone and say, hey, I really want to get involved in this particular community. Where should I go? If they know everyone else, they're going to say, hey, call Joe at this number and ask him. He was looking for somebody the other day to help out with this project. They're going to connect you. You're looking for people who are considered super connectors, which are people who know other people, lots and lots and lots of other people. I am not one of those people. My brother is. Do you need to join another group? Do you need to join a club? Do you need to change your routine? I'm going to tell you a story that is not a story. It's 100% true. And yet it will seem like a story. So I'm telling you it's true now, that's regarding this. So years and years and years ago, probably 10 years ago, I joined a real estate team as a buyer's agent. And our average price then was somewhere between like the $600,000 and $700,000 range. It was in Colorado. And the team I was on, the woman, I noticed, so when you get to know someone, you know what type of person they are generally and what they like to do in their activities. And I noticed she was putting her young daughter in cotillion. If you don't know what cotillion is, Google it really quickly. I'll give you 30 seconds. You don't know what cotillion is, and it's important for the story. So Google it really quickly. What is cotillion? And I want to see some of y'all's faces. So cotillion is a class essentially where little girls generally are taught ballroom dancing and how to properly set a table and how to be like proper little girls who turn into proper women, correct? All right, so I noticed that she was putting her daughter in cotillion, and I'm thinking, why are you doing that? And I asked her, why are you putting your daughter in cotillion? And she said, well, I was thinking, and I want our team's average price to be over $1 million. Now, where do I find people who own over $1 million homes? Their kids are in lacrosse and cotillion and all these things, right? So she started putting her kids in activities on the other side of town, going to yoga on the other side of town to be around people with over $1 million homes. Now, I'm not telling you to use your children for that kind of thing, but I'm not above it. I probably would do the same thing. And yet I thought she was genius in that moment 10 years ago. She knew she had to be them and be a part of their network and their community in order for them to trust her. Think about that. Where are the people that you want to work with located? And do you need to change your routine and go to a different side of town or a different coffee shop or work with different people or go to different events? I don't know. She did. And I'll tell you, her average is over 1.5 million now, and consistently has been that for the last probably 7 or 8 years. So it worked, right? Or something worked. So now that you guys know who you're going to target, what do? We're going to talk for a second about creating branding and messaging, and then I am going to get you guys out of here because I know we're going a few minutes over. If you can't stay for the extra 7 or 8 minutes, you can just hang up and watch it on replay. That will be done in about 7 minutes. So creating your brand and the messaging, once you've identified whoever your target is and you're crystal clear on who you're wanting to work with, what the problems are that they're going to face and how you're going to solve them, you're going to craft a message. And we're not going to spend much time on this because every single one of you can tell a different story. But branding and messaging is not just an art, it's also a science, and you should not approach it lightly. Don't just throw things out in the world for people to see. Carve out some time in your schedule to sit down and ask yourselves, how can I tell a story that hits whatever these pain points are? How can you tell a story about how you've helped those type of people? How can you tell a story about how that particular person was struggling before you got to them, and now because you've helped them and you've guided them through this, that you might be their answer? If you're looking to really do well with this, Donald Miller wrote a book called Building a Story Brand. It is one of the best books I've read on this in a long time. He also has a class that you can take. It's pretty expensive, but it's good. It's well worth it. And he talks about there are certain components to every story. And if you want to tell an effective story, you have to hit all of them. You could also Google Building a Story Brand components and it will pop up. It talks about how there's a person who has a problem, which we're talking about your client right now, who meets a guide, which is you. The guide gives them a plan and calls them to action. All of that is right out of the Story Brand book. And I would highly encourage you guys to read it. So that's Donald Miller's framework for effectively storytelling. And I've kind of adopted that as my own, and it works well for us. But please keep in mind that in order to effectively message, you have to know who you're crafting the message for, which is where the target audience thing comes in. So I wanted to give you guys examples of the features and benefits thing we talked about a few minutes ago. And I would probably screenshot this because you're not going to be able to write fast enough for me to not change the slide because there's a lot here. I'm going to read it to you though. So if we're talking about the features, I'm going to give you an example. I sell homes 5 days sooner than average other realtors in our local area. The feature is what you do for that person. I sell homes 5 days sooner on average than other realtors in our local area. The benefit could be, because I sell homes faster than any other agent in your area, you can blank. Whatever that feature, the reason for that goes in the blank. So not just I do this, but because I do this, here's what it means to you. Most of us just communicate in features only, and yet consumers are looking for, why does this benefit me? Why does this benefit me? If you haven't screenshotted this, give you like 5 seconds and then we're going to move on. Remember, you guys, first and foremost, if you can articulate what's in it for them, you're going to hit it every single time. So here are some highlights. You might want to screenshot this as well. Identify their pain points. One way to do that is get perspective, do a focus group, simply ask them, search for insight. Some of you will already know what their pain points are. If you're like me and you are your target market, I know what my pain points are. I was texting Graham pictures of our U-Haul caravan. My husband pulled he drove a 20-something, 23-foot trailer and pulled a 12-foot trailer behind it. And I pulled a 12-foot trailer behind my Tahoe and dropped him off at the airport this morning to fly back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina to pull another trailer. And we have 2 homes we have to rent out in this whole thing. I know what pain points I'm dealing with right now. Some of you may not know that, and you might need to gain perspective, ask people, or search for some sort of insight on social media or YouTube. Would work well. All right, so I want to give you guys a few seconds. We're going to go back to I'm going to end on the components of a brand so that you guys can screenshot that too. But before we do that, if you guys want to continue forward with this, there are some things that I would say take away from this particular 30, 40 minutes. Number 1, spend time documenting the components, and we're going to go back to that in a second. Number 2, identify your target audience. Number 3, document the who, what, why, and where, like we said before. And number 4, I want you to write out what your features and your benefits are for people who choose to work with you. And if you want to continue on and join me on the 8-week course that I teach. Here's the information you can screenshot on that. I do launch that on July 26th. It's at 2 p.m. Central. It is recorded. It's an 8-week version of this, an hour a week for 8 weeks, where we do a deep dive into different parts of social media to include video, audio, all that stuff. It is $200 for the full 8-week course. And if you want to, you can go to mapscoaching.com/fast track. I know that says group, but now it's fast track. mapscoaching.com/fast track. And you will see the course on the top right-hand corner, most likely, called Building Your Social Media Empire. They are recorded. You can watch them later. So if you have a conflict with any of the schedules on there, you can watch the recording later. All right. So really quickly, I'm going to go back real fast so that we can talk about this before you go. I want you guys to take a screenshot of this, because if you're looking at working through the components of your brand, these are the 5 things you need to work through. What's your brand's identity? What's the purpose? How do you craft a message based on your audience? How are you different? And what's the experience you want people to have whenever they work with you? All right, you guys, I trust that all of you got something from today that you can take away and at least adjust or tweak some of your Facebook and social media, Instagram stuff. And if you still have questions, go back to the sheet where you wrote your intentions for the next 30 minutes. And if I didn't answer something, I'm going to pop my email address in the chat box. You're more than welcome to email me. I would love to help all of you. There are a lot of you in here. Hold on, I gotta get to the top. I would love to help all of you in whatever questions you have. Thank you guys so much. Happy Tuesday. And I will be unpacking boxes for the next 12 and a half years of my life until we move again. Everyone, I'll see you later.